Alright, this one is basically about Vox Day and how that guy is essentially single-handedly, apart from probably a few thousand faceless minions or what have you, some dread ilk, but he is essentially changing the landscape of the cultural warfare. And it's really interesting. The way I became friends with Vox was, I'm trying to think what year it was, but anyway, I came across his blog, and I did something that I hate when other people do it. I actually skim read is not actually accurate. I read quickly through one of his blog posts, or maybe 2 or 3 of them, and it's not that I skim read, but it's that I was so used to people using the language incorrectly and not being precise with their words that I had made some assumptions about what he was actually saying, which were not based on his words, but rather my interpretation of his words based on the general zeitgeist of the populace. And I think I made a comment sort of like, this is, nonsense. And I can't even remember if it was him or some of the people on the blog. This was back then when the blog still had like relatively intelligent commentators for the most part. And they were sort of like, oh, you're in the wrong place, sort of thing. And I thought, okay, that's intriguing, let me take another look. And then I reread the blog posts that he'd written, and I sort of thought, And my first impression was like, this guy is a really hardcore zealot Christian of the, I thought he was sort of like the, what are those Baptists guys that go to the funerals of dead gay soldiers and like say God punished you, I thought he was kind of along those lines. And I think he is kind of from the Baptist sort of side of things. But unlike most Baptist, Vox is actually literate, very literate in fact. And I started to read his blog a bit more, and I sort of, my first impact, like I said, the first day or so that I came across his blog was sort of like, this guy is sort of like a typical kind of, a bit of a blowhard, zealot, Christian, random American guy. But I paid attention to what he wrote, and I sort of was like, actually, if I take his words at face value, rather than my interpretation of what I think people that use these words actually are trying to say, and then I looked into it more, and I carried on reading for a couple of months before I made another sort of comment, and I was like, actually I was wrong, like my initial understanding of what this guy is just was off. So I wrote him an email basically saying, well, I actually owe you an apology, because when I came across your blog I sort of thought you were just kind of an idiot. And then I actually read exactly what you're writing and not sort of what people think you're writing. And, makes a lot of sense. And, he's got an attitude that I've always had that we share very much. And I think I'm actually a lot more an exponent of this way of behaving, which is I'll say something, quite outrageous, or I'll be quite arrogantly rude at you straight away when you sort of step out of line just a little bit. And it's a filter for intelligence, because an actually intelligent person will see past that. Someone who isn't will just get all offended, or get like, oh, what you're saying is outrageous. And actually, no, it's not outrageous. It's correct. It's just been phrased in a way that rhetorically triggers you, but dialectically is absolutely accurate. And he does that quite well. And so, that sort of we made some comments and whatever. And I remember one of the very first things that Vox told me, and I can't remember if it was probably online at that time. I don't think we'd met yet. We definitely had not met yet in person. So I can't remember if it was on one of the brainstorms or I don't know. I don't remember. But he said to me, I'm a very patient man. And there are things about people, events, whatever, that just stick in your mind. And that one definitely did, because I found that a lot of his positions were very similar to my own in ways of thinking, certain philosophies of life and so on. I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I understood, just at a cultural level how important Christianity was. And and I remember when he said I'm a very patient man, that I paid attention to that, because generally speaking, I've never been a very patient man. And in fact, my go-to sort of phrase for when people say, oh, you need to be patient, is, you know, patience is an excuse for the witless. You know, if you're too dumb to move at my speed, then you say, oh, you should be patient. There is a lot of truth in that. A lot of people pretend to use patience when they're really just lazy, slow, you know, whatever. But patience has its place. The only sort of time where I could understand patience was in the context of hunting. Whether you're hunting animals, whether you're hunting people, you know, or as the, you know, the Sicilians saying of like, revenge is a dish best served cold. And of course, as a Christian, you know, revenge is mine, saith the Lord. I'm Venetian, so it's somewhere in between. And it's like, the glass blade will find you late at night when you least expect it, and it'll look like it's cold, but there was a lot of intention behind it. And who knows, you know, I do believe that God acts in mysterious ways, and sometimes we are his tools. But anyway, it's actually quite astonishing what Vox has already accomplished. But what prompted this particular video is a series of events, I should say, that is going to affect the zeitgeist of the social justice warrior type deplatforming situation in an immense fashion. You know, you got to keep in mind that Vox, when Gamergate came out, that's kind of when we met. We met in Paris for the first time. You know, I can't say we will always have Paris, because he disappeared with Milo later that night, and Chernovich, so I didn't have Paris with Vox, but you know, we met there. So anyway, and actually, you know, by that time we had communicated for a little bit online and so on, and I brought him a tomahawk because, you know, he's an Aztec essentially, you know, and that's sort of what the little still image for this video is about. You know, if you want to get a good scalp, it takes patience. You know, you don't want to get tufts of hair here and there, you know, holes. It takes patience to scalp your victim properly, and Vox definitely has that ability. So you got to keep in mind that, sort of as a run-on from Gamergate to a certain extent, Vox essentially burnt down the Hugos. Larry Correia started out with Sad Puppies, which was basically, Larry Correia had never been nominated for a Hugo Award, and he's a best-selling author, an independent author who sells really well, and his books sell really well. I communicated with Larry for a short period of time, for a few months, on Twitter, when I was still on Twitter, before I got banned at the IP level by Jack, because I had a pinned tweet about Jack's pedophilic proclivities. But anyway, so Larry Correia basically wanted to demonstrate that the Hugos was a club of little nerds that were just doing a circle jerk and giving each other awards and so on. While, you know, when I was a kid, the Hugos, the Hugo Award actually meant something. The winner of a Hugo Award, you were guaranteed, if you read that science fiction story, was probably going to be a good story. Now it's just, you know, John Scalzi's won, I don't know, 15 Hugos or whatever, been nominated for 29, you know, some ridiculous figures, and it's always the same guys. And Larry Correia said, you know, it's just nonsense, and I can prove it. And what he did is he did like a campaign or something, and sort of proved this point. And you know, there was a lot of sort of kickback on the internet by all the social justice warriors going, oh, Larry Correia is a hate monger. And I think Larry Correia's sort of Legion of Evil's name is International Lord of Hate. Something like that. So, you know, I mean, the guy got accused of beating his wife, of being a racist, of all sorts. You know, Larry Correia is of Portuguese descent, and he's a huge man, he's a mountain of a man. But just from what little interaction I've had with him, I'm absolutely sure that, you know, he loves big guns and all that, but there is no way that guy has probably ever even raised his voice to his wife. You know, it's just absurd shit they were making up about him. Now, Vox has had a long history of you know, being vilified and attacked by everybody on the planet, pretty much. I mean, some of his accolades, Vox accolades, are the most reviled man in science fiction. You know, he's got a list of them, and that's why he's the supreme Dark Lord. You know, which we both, I think, find quite funny. Although I assure you that it's not necessarily fun when you're going through that, especially if you're on your own and there's nobody on your side and whatever. But you know, he's a tough guy, and he doesn't mind. And so Vox started rabbit puppies, because, you know, Larry Correa did sad puppies, kind of proved this point, and then kind of was done with it. And Vox was like, oh, these guys are still going at it? Yeah, well, you know what? We're not going to be sad puppies. We're going to be rabbit puppies. And he posted a list of what people should vote for, and that's how we got, you know, the homosexual Tyrannosaurus Rex gay books. One Hugo's got nominated for Hugo's, and it's like they gave the social justice warriors had to give no awards all over the place. I mean, legitimate authors like John C. Wright, for example, who was nominated for 4 or 5 different categories, they gave him no awards throughout on everything. And it's, you know, it absolutely clear that it was fixed. But because, you know, we had the numbers, and Vox said, look, all you got to do is vote this way. And then they changed the rules. He made them change the rules about the whole Hugo Awards. And they nuked themselves. I mean, the Hugo Awards are now a joke. They're a complete joke in the science fiction. And I honestly believe that Vox did that mostly just to entertain himself. You know, there wasn't like a huge bunch of strategic planning. That was just like to prove a point and like, yeah, I can do this and you can't stop me. And he did, you know. And that changed the landscape. Because you need to understand something else, and I've always said this since since a very young age, since about 16, 17, 18. I've read a lot, and I read a lot of science fiction. And I've always said that science fiction, at its, you know, if you boil it down, is essentially social commentary, and social commentary ultimately has an impact on the zeitgeist of the planet. So what is a science fiction story today becomes the way of thinking of people, especially if it's successful. To a certain extent, it moves the way people think. Same thing with comic books. And, you know, Vox has written a number of fiction stories, which, you know, Vox and I have got rather quite different styles of writing, quite different styles of appreciation of writing as well. He is, by his own admission, sort of an elitist snob when it comes to literature. I'm not. I'm more about the idea. For me, the idea, the gimmick, the smartness, the intelligence of it, the plot, that sort of stuff is very important to me. Much more so than whether the literature, the grammatical sort of poetic type of presentation is good or not. There are authors that I like, which I would guess that Vox probably wouldn't enjoy as much. I know, for example, one book we did talk about was The Missionaries, which he published through Castelia House, and he, I believe, edited. He found The Missionaries hilarious. I barely cracked a smile, but that's because Vox was appreciating the linguistic and literary, shall we say, a highbrow sort of sarcasm, jocularity, whatever you want to call it, that is intrinsic in that way of writing. While for me, I read The Missionaries. Keep in mind, I grew up in Africa, in various countries in Africa. So I read it, you know, a little bit sort of like a well-written documentary, you know, because a lot of the shit that happens in The Missionaries, I can tell you for a fact, it's really, there's nothing in there that that is very far-fetched. So, you know, I read it more like, well, yeah, it's just like, you know, Tuesday back home sort of thing, you know, where I grew up. So while I, for example, enjoyed there's a guy whose name I forget, what's it called, I think it's called Pete Dexter. And you know, if you're slightly sort of depressed, don't read anything that Pete Texter wrote, because I think he redefines the concept of a noir, you know, noir, sort of the sort of dark thriller sort of thing. I think Pete Texter created a new genre called slit your wrists type of thing, but brilliant writing. And you know, I don't like people like Anne McCaffrey. I could never read Anne McCaffrey's stuff, because you know, she takes 3 pages to describe a leaf falling off a tree, and you know, because it's autumn. And Pete Texter would write winter, full stop. And I love that kind of writing. You know, it allows you to paint your own picture, while Anne McCaffrey has to describe exactly how the leaf flitters down and so on. So we've got very different styles of enjoyment of books and of writing. Our writing differs one from the other quite a lot. He doesn't particularly enjoy my writing. I have enjoyed some of his short stories and so on, but I haven't read any of his large fantasy books, because not really my thing. And that's not a criticism at all, you know. His books do very well, and they're very well received. Just not my cup of tea. And similarly, my stuff's not really his cup of tea. That said, we are able to appreciate each other's you know, valid sort of skills. And so I sort of lost why I started talking about this, but anyway, the point is, oh yeah, he changed the Hugos, he burnt the Hugos down to the ground, just kind of for fun. Then he got into this comic book thing, and now he's released Alt Hero, and where is it? I've got, hold on. Yeah, here we go. I'm one of the original supporters of it, so it's good. It's really good, and I can't wait to get the hard copy of Alt Hero Q, which is brilliant. I'm really enjoying it. So he's changed the whole again zeitgeist of comic books. Comic books died; they got destroyed. I mean, the golden age of comic books, although I know the golden age actually means something, and technically speaking I think it was the silver age. You know, the X-Men, where like there was a whole series of the X-Men where Cyclops at one point takes out all of the X-Men, and that's why he was the leader. It proves that, you know, even though he didn't have such a cool superpower compared to the other guys, he takes out all the X-Men when a guy called Mastermind makes all the X-Men think that you know, kind of like with a mind-altering thing, make them think that Cyclops is an enemy, is one of their most vicious enemies. And instead it's Cyclops, and he realizes, oh no, they've all been brainwashed into like seeing me as something else. But he's so smart and clever and tactical and whatever that he takes them all out. And sort of shows the point. That was like a whole comic book that was just basically to show why Cyclops is their leader, sort of thing. You know, they had really cool storylines. They had like really funny ones, like the Justice League became hilarious at a certain point, where they had Blue Beetle, and at one point they had this thief, this like burglars into the Justice League's house in France, in Paris or something. Yeah, so he just burglars a house, and it just happens to be the house of the Justice League, and he didn't know, and he's like, oh crap, I'm just a normal human and I just broke into the house of superheroes, sort of thing. And this burglar's name is Jean-Jean Lejean. You know, it was hilarious. I mean, you did that now, they'd probably boycott the whole thing for being racist about the French or something, who knows. And so, you know, again, so, you know, single-handedly almost Vox Days bringing back comic books, again changing the zeitgeist, destroying the old zeitgeist, creating a new zeitgeist. But all of this, and you know, he's also making a movie about Alt Hero, which is going to be awesome. I saw the short introduction to it that he sent me. I think, I don't know if that's out yet or not, whatever. I'm not going to really discuss the details of it, but it is awesome. It's really well made. And you know, he's very modest about it, because he told me I had nothing to do with that. You know, I just said, yeah, go do what you want. And he says, my skill is in picking the right people that will do the right job. And it definitely is a skill he has. But even that, there is something that he has done that is a lot more significant than all that. And I'm sure that you all know that he had funded Alt Hero Q using Indiegogo, and then Indiegogo pulled the funding. And, you know, Vox replied through legal means. And through those legal means, he resolved the issue. And there's very clearly now, he has got to a point where it's going to be very difficult for anybody to deplatform him from anything without receiving severe legal consequences that hit the bottom line. I have no doubt that he will unfortunately probably have to do this more than once, because, you know, SJWs always double down. But you know, one of Vox's statements is make the rubble bounce. You know, like, I've been fired from a couple of jobs, not well, I don't know, possibly partially for politically correct reasons, but certainly for office politics reasons that had nothing to do with my ability at my job. I mean, I literally doubled the profit margin on a project, and I was fired simply because the project manager and the project director had been embarrassed essentially by my good work, without me wanting to embarrass or trying to embarrass them, or, you know, just how it went. Didn't matter, because I had another job within days that paid me stupid money after that, so it was like, you know, it's all meant to happen the way it's supposed to happen. But I absolutely concur with that statement. You know, if you're gonna get fired or have a social justice warrior attack on you, and you can't win, whatever, you get fired, you get thrown out, you get whatever, make the rubble bounce. Don't go quietly into the night. Because most of the time, and when you do get attacked, fight back straight away. Don't hesitate. Don't be like, oh well, document everything and go at them with both barrels. You know, the whole point of never apologize. Absolutely, never apologize to social justice warriors. You know, I've discussed about being wrong. I did a video a while back about called being wrong, and I've differentiated there between, you know, an apology where if you're wrong about something or whatever on a personal level or in your life or whatever. Never, ever, ever, ever apologize to social justice warriors. It's a technique of emotional blackmail. Luckily or unluckily, depends which way you look at it, I am essentially kind of immune to emotional blackmail because of you know, my boomer parents to a certain degree. But so never ever respond that way. But the thing is that that's having a real impact on huge players. You know, Vox is one of the few people that is literally banned from the Google campus, and he's never had any dealings with them as far as I know. He's never, but he is physically banned from going onto the Google campus, which I'm sure he has no interest in going to, but that's an official thing. It's sort of like, what? You know, and he has a level of influence that, you know, people have started to now understand, just leave him alone, because that guy bites, you know. And we have quite a similar philosophy in that respect, although we go about it possibly a little bit differently. Although, to be fair, you know, when I have been wronged, let's say, I have certainly used legal means to make things right, and I haven't lost a single time yet. So, you know, we'll see. You know, in business and whatever, and somebody tries not to pay me or tries to do some dodgy shit, you know, they've never come out on top. It's just not wise to try and go after people that don't give up, don't know the meaning of the word quit, and you know, I guess that the common way of saying it is we hold the grudge. That's not quite accurate. You know, it's a little bit of a misunderstanding of our mentality. It's not really that I hold a grudge with hatred in my heart. I'm just like, no, you did wrong, and now you're gonna pay. I don't lose sleep over it. It's not like I get all upset and tense about it. I'm just gonna keep hammering at you. And you know, there's a principle of this that is the same in martial arts. You know, if you're wrestling with a guy that's pretty good at jiu-jitsu or whatever, and you know, you're kind of like in a lock and he's kind of in a lock, and you can't really get anything done except, you know, maybe all you can do is just a little, that's it, just a little tap. And you know, maybe it's not even on the face, it's like maybe just, that's all you can do, just a tiny little tap, that's it. That's all the movement you have, and that's all you can do. Well, guess what? If you do that 15,000 times, you're gonna make a hole. So what at first feels like, I can take that all day. Try that for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you don't have to go all day. After 5 minutes, you're like, oh Jesus, my body needs to get the hell away from this, you know. And then you make a space. Then you break out, and then you put him in a proper lock, whatever. So it's the same thing, you know. It's like, it doesn't matter if I'm just a drop of water. I'm just gonna keep tap, 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 and I will never stop. You either submit, die, give up, beg for mercy. You know, those are your options. Or kill me. Good luck with that. You know, others have tried. So yeah, it's really, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily see the big picture. Vox absolutely does, and it's quite interesting. You know, he's quite, I've always said, you know, he's a better strategist than I am. I'm a better tactician than he is. And sometimes, you know, I've seen, I would call them strategic errors that he's made. They're not very significant, but I saw them. However, in the big scheme of things, in the really big scheme of things, they're not really relevant. They would be relevant to me because, again, as I see things at a tactical level, which is a more personal level, is a more, to a certain extent, a more subjective level, although it has a very clear objective reality. But you know, there may well be things or people or alliances that I wouldn't make, that Vox wouldn't even think twice about making, because they serve a bigger, sort of higher purpose. And I don't know the ethics of that. I've thought about it, but it's just an area that, you know, I've got my limits of where I'm comfortable, and that's where I stop. You know, if it's something makes me feel uncomfortable ethically, you know, with my own whatever, then I don't cross that line. And I think it's a very interesting sort of difference that I think we have, because in the big picture of things, Vox will associate or have alliances or make deals with people that I wouldn't give the time of day to, you know, and he maybe even works with them sometimes or whatever. And is you know, unflinchingly loyal to his base, to the people that he works with, and you know, he's got a very good understanding of loyalty, I think, in that respect. At the same time, you know, within my comfort zone, I think there are lines that I would cross without batting an eyelid, that Vox would probably be like, no, I'm not going to do that. And it stems from, you know, the strategic mind versus the tactical mind, because the strategic mind might also think in terms of future, like big picture, you know, how this affects other things. Tactical mind is like, yeah, I'm gonna slit 15 people's throats, but I'm good today, you know. And it's like, what? You know, you could have just talked to them. It's like, nah, they would have been bad down the line, so better just take them out now. And you know, while Vox would be like, for example, one of the things he says, you know, the moderates, you just sort of leave them alone and just don't put them in position of power, don't let them get in the way, but you know, just don't you don't have to do anything about them. I won't associate with moderates. You know, on a project that I'm working on, I'm trying to do or whatever, and we've got these lukewarm people, I don't want them. I don't want them anywhere near me. You know, I've got my rhetorical statement for that is, I will use the bodies of the lukewarm moderates to protect the sandbags of my trench. That's the only purpose they have, as far as I'm concerned, because they are the snake in your bed. You know, it's like, nah. So we have quite differing approaches, and you know, but sort of always aimed in the same sort of direction. And it's very interesting to see where our paths cross. I mean, I'll give you another example that I thought was quite classical. We often have similar ideas without even discussing them. Quite a while back, I co-wrote a book under a pseudonym about the pedophiles that infest the world, essentially. And we wrote this under pseudonyms. It's called The Left Hand of Darkness, and it's written in as much as we could possibly do it in a funny way, as much as you can make pedophilia funny. You know, it's not funny as in making fun of what these people are doing. It's making fun of them and of their evil, scummy, disgusting ways, making fun of them at a pretty personal level, but truthfully, you know, using the truth as a weapon. So yeah, this little booklet, The Left Hand of Darkness, and it was tough to write, man. You know, I didn't want to deal with that alone. I did it with a guy who has got a great sense of humor, is a good guy, and you know, and I proposed it to Vox, and I sort of said, hey, listen, I think we need to expose these people, and we've done this little work, you know, will you sort of promote it or something? You've got a much bigger audience than I have. And he was like, yeah, look, I don't know about that. And shortly after that, you know, he didn't mention it on his blog, whatever, but shortly after that, what came out was the series of Safe Space as Rape Room, written by Daniel Ennis, which was a Hugo-nominated series of blogs on the Castelia House blog, which exposed the pedophiles in the science fiction community to a degree that my little booklet, even if it had been sold worldwide, would never have achieved, you know. So he was right in not watering down what he was doing with my pitiful, let's say, effort. I mean, not pitiful, because it still would have had some kind of an impact, but you know, tiny one. So it's always good to do something rather than nothing, but you never know also what the consequences of that are. They could have ripple effects that you will never know about, but that are very meaningful, and I'm sure that these type of books always do that. But you know, I mean, look at Believe. I didn't even think anybody would necessarily buy Believe, and it's selling really well. And it's affecting people's lives. You know, I get mails or comments on a daily basis now. You know, I don't know. I'm quite surprised it's having that much of an impact. I'm very happy about it, but you know, you just never know. So, but it's, you know, and there's been a couple of times when I, for example, he was surprised to find out that Castelia House did better on the physical books than on the digital books. I knew that already. I knew that already because I had self-published back in '95 when there was no self-publishing, you know, and I had to, the stuff I had to do I literally had to like take the photographs for the plates of that book myself. Every single plate that produced that book, I created it with the machinery and the printers to do it. And I knew that physical books do better than digital books, especially books of a certain type. And especially if you're selling them to a certain type of reader, which to a great extent the Castelia House readers are. That didn't surprise me at all. While, you know, and so on, we've got sort of different skill sets and whatever, but the point is, the only point I wanted to make was, I don't think that people understand just how much Vox is affecting all sorts of things. There are people, I'm telling you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, in Silicon Valley that are scared of what Vox is up to and what he's doing. I can tell you, I can guarantee you, there are, you know, well-known, very wealthy people in Silicon Valley that are worried about Vox, and that just makes me smile. You know, whenever I see he's got another scalp under his belt, I'm like, yep. That's good. So yeah, you know, I'm glad that he's having such a successful time of it, and just letting you know, just keep watching him, because what he's doing now is going to leverage things to an extent that is it's difficult for people to understand. You know, and I can see these things coming a little bit more ahead of time than most, I suppose, although this one is, you know, this is all pretty obvious, but I don't think anyone realizes just how much of an impact Vox manages to eventually have, and it's really quite something. So yeah, that's it, my tribute to Vox, which I know he doesn't watch videos, but on the off chance that he does, hope you're having a good one, buddy, and yeah, have a good evening.